Well, hello friends. Welcome back to my hobby home. My name is Kathy. Thank you for joining me today. I am going to be making a flange binding, and you see I have my little sidekick here, Oscar. He's wanting some petting today. So we're doing a flange binding, and the first thing, I've seen several things that says the first thing you need to do is pick your colors. My big thing is you need to pick out what width you want your binding and which one is going to be your main fabric and which one is going to be your flange. This is going to be my main fabric. You can see the quilt I have behind me here. This is going to be my main binding. You'll see I have the border right here. And this is going to be my flange. That's a border right there. Now I want a 2.5 inch with a 1/4 inch flange. So what that means is this fabric right here will need to be 1 3/4 inches. And this one will need to be 1 1/4. So I think I have just enough to do this. So let me I am using my stripology. I am going to start with my flange first. And let me get it laid out here. I probably could actually press this out to get any of the wrinkles out of it, but I think I'm just going to do this. I will turn you guys down in just a little bit so you can see me cut. So just one moment here. So here you see I have my flange. This one is going to be the larger of the two at 1 3/4. I cannot use my stripology with this. So what I will do is get this flat, and I will use my Creative Grid 18.5 inch ruler here. So what I'm going to do, get my fabrics over here out of the way. I am going to trim the edge. I probably need to turn it this direction so I can line up on this edge. And I'm just going to do it at 1/4 inch. I'm going to line up on the selvage line there. I think that caught all of it. Yes, it did. Okay, so what I'm going to do is measure this out at 1 3/4 inches. Now, I probably need to turn my ruler this way. And I always like to line up one of the lines on the selvage just to make sure it is straight. And now once again, this is the flange part. Your flange part is going to be the larger fabric of the two. So I'm just going to cut strips and lay them out of the way. And the blue, we will cut the blue at 1 1/4. So I won't be able to use my stripology on either one because that only works at full and half inches. I do not know how many strips I need at 1 3/4. I'm going to do them all because I have no use for either one of these fabrics. After this quilt is done, what is left will go in a scrap pile, and it won't hurt to have flange binding in a scrap pile. We are still lining up on this side here and measuring out 1 3/4. Now this quilt that's behind me, you can't see it with my camera turned down, but it is a bed-size quilt. So we're going to have quite a few strips to cover the whole thing. Now this is the first flange binding I will have ever done. I have done a lot of research on it. I've seen some that does different sizes, where the flange is only 1/8 of an inch. I want my flange larger than that. And the reason I want it larger than that is because both of these colors are borders on this quilt. So I want it to, you know, stand out, you know, to make a statement. This is some that I had left over when I made the borders. I don't need that right at the moment, but I have it just in case I do. So now this one here is going to be 1 1/4. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line up over here and do some trim work real quick. Now, like I said, this one here is 1 1/4. I don't know how many strips I have of the yellow. Let's see. I have 9 strips. So we're hoping we get 9. If we don't, I can use this little piece here. So it looks like we may have enough to do 9. So guys, I hope y'all are having a really fantastic day. It is Friday when y'all see this. And I'm actually recording this on Thursday night. It's at 9:30 p.m. I came home and took my nap. So I'm rested. My husband and I went and grabbed a bite to eat. We're getting ready for the appliances to come in Tuesday. So I'm trying not to mess any dishes up, because I am still cleaning from a mess in my pantry, and I just do a little bit a day. You know, I don't do it all in one day. I do a little bit each day. We're making sure we're right on the money here. Now, once I get all of my strips cut, I will sew them together just like regular binding, end to end, into a long strip. Okay, I've got 6 there, so now I only need 3 more. Because I think, did I say I had 9 or 10? If I had 10, I'll have plenty. I'll have plenty to make that 10. Now this is the Creative Grids 18.5 inch ruler. I do have it down in the description if you'd like to check it out. I do have everything I use down in the description if you'd like to check any of it out. I got this when doing the Fat Quarter Shop Peaceful Baskets, because most of their blocks end up being like 17 inches. Okay, so now I have my strips cut. What I'm going to do is turn you guys back up and we'll start sewing these. Okay friends, so what we do now is we take all of our strips of one color, don't mix them yet, and we are going to sew them just like we do any other binding. So we take face up and face down, and we line it up like a T. Now I pin mine. I pin from at the top, I pin it side to side at the top right, and on the bottom left I pin it up and down. Now this is going to be a little hard to do what I need to do because it is only 1 1/4 inches. But what I do, I take my marking tool. This is also down in the description if you'd like to look at this. It is an OmniGrid marking tool. It came as a set. It came with 3 of them in it. So what I'm doing is I'm going to mark from corner to corner. And I have my friction fine liner. I think that's what it's called. Yes. That I'm using to mark. Now the friction fine liner, it is like a marker tip. And I love it. It works great. So what we'll do is we will sew this at that diagonal. And you just line up on that, your drawn line. And make sure to go from corner to corner. And when I do that, I just leave that on my machine. And I know this, I flip it back over. I just leave it folded and folded like that. And then I get my next strip. So that needs to go that direction so I don't grab it and sew it back to itself. So this one is face up. Make sure you can see all it. This one is face up. This one is going to be face down. And once again, I pin. Top right and bottom left is where I'm pinning. And then I mark. It's easier for me to lay it on my table to mark. So I'm sorry if y'all can't see that, but I can't see it way up there on the table, on my sewing table. And then we just line this one up here as well. And sew on that line. And I will go ahead and take my pins out once I get my needle down in there. And I just make sure that marked line comes out in the corner. So what I'll do is I'll keep on doing this until I have all of both colors done. And I will bring you right back at that time. And we will start sewing this together. So guys, what we're doing once again is making a flange binding. I've heard it called a faux flange as well. So y'all stay with me. In just a second, you'll see all of the strips completed. Okay, we now have all of our strips sewn. So all I need to do is cut them apart. We are going to cut these apart, and then we will trim this overhang piece off. And once we do that, we will press the binding just like you would even if it was just a single piece of binding. You do it exactly like that. I didn't realize I still had some pins left in there. But once we do that, once we get each strip pressed out or cut apart, trimmed, and pressed out, we will then sew the blue and yellow one long strip of each one together. Okay, so that cuts all of that apart. So now what I need to do is I'm separating the blue from the yellow so I can do one at a time. And I'm taking my table off here so I can see better and you can too. Okay, so here is our end. And we have these pieces here where we sewed it together. I'm going to push that out of the way. I do use my ruler just to make sure that I'm not getting too close to the seam line. You don't have to do that if you don't need to. Me, I need to. I just like to be on the safe side because I can go all wonky with everything, guys. But this is my first time ever doing a flange binding. I have been instructed by individuals and I have been instructed by videos. I've watched a lot of videos on it. And I just had to decide if I wanted 1/4 of an inch or if I wanted 1/8 of an inch flange. I really think I want that 1/4 just because it's a bigger statement. You can see it a lot better. Okay, friends, I now have both of my strips completely done, I am going to put this strip on the bottom. So I'm going to run it all the way down here. So I pressed it just like you do a normal binding. You know, I sewed on a diagonal, pressed that seam open on both sets of strips. So I am just going to put my presser foot down on that to keep that one down. And I have all of this binding on the wrong side of me. I let stuff hang down on the ground. All it's going to do is pick up a thread or two here and there. And that's okay. So now what I'm doing is taking the two strips and I am lining them up. We are going to sew this at the 1/4 inch. So I'm just getting that needle in there. And I'm keeping the blue strip on the top of my machine over here. And that's just so they don't get tangled up below me. But we are going to sew this at that 1/4 inch, and hopefully it don't take too long. But in just a second you will see all of this sewn into a large strip when I come back. And also when putting these together, I just noticed I don't have my diagonals going the same direction. I'm going to say that doesn't really matter. It doesn't to me. But if it does to you, that may be something you want to look at before putting your two strips together. You may want to make sure the diagonals are going the same direction. Mine are not necessarily lining up. They are close to one another, but they're not lining up. So my thoughts on it is they're not lining up, so it's not really going to create a problem as far as thickness on the binding. And guys, I don't know if I've told you, but this is for this quilt that's hanging behind me. This is my Craftsman. If you have been with me for any length of time, you have heard me mention the Craftsman. But we have told the tale of the Craftsman several times. This is the first large quilt, like this large, that I made. Now since then I have made the woodruff, and I don't have it bound either. I don't even have the borders on it yet. But that is on my to-do list. But we are doing this a flange binding, as also known as a faux flange. I don't know the difference. I mean, I would not imagine that somebody would do two bindings. You know, 4 pieces of fabric. I can't imagine somebody would do that. I'm sure there may be another way to do a flange, but this is the only way I've seen to do a flange. Now I'm going to make sure I'm coming up on a seam for my accent, or my yellow, for the flange part. Now, and also I will tell you, the instructions that I have seen in multiple places say to press towards the binding, which is the smaller piece, not the flange piece. I'm sure there is a reason for that. probably because your flange is only going to be 1/4 of an inch, and you don't want that 1/4 of an inch to have extra thickness there. You want your thickness to be in the binding, not your flange. Well, yeah, we finally have our 2 strips sewn together. So now what I need to do is press this. So I will be right back. Y'all see it's a big, long strip here. Once I press this, I will be right back with y'all. Now I have our flange binding pressed. The flange binding is a 2-step process. The first part, you have to press the binding away from your flange. And then once you get that done, you have to fold this in half and press it. Now, when I do that, I have my binding buddy that I just slide my binding on here. Let me see if it'll let me do the flange. There it goes. And I will just roll this up on my binding buddy. It's going to take me a minute to do this, so I'm not going to keep y'all the whole time I do this. But this here will make it easier for me to bind my quilt. And as I said, this one right here behind me is the one that I will be binding. I did use border fabric. You'll see right here is the yellow, right there is the blue. I'm using those 2 fabrics as my binding as well. So I think that's going to look really cute. I think it's going to be a great contrast. I love this quilt. I fell in love with it when I made it. I saw the pattern and I thought, oh, because my goal was just to get a fat quarter pattern that was different. And this one to me was different. That is made out of fat quarters and some yardage. And I think the yardage is just the white sashing that goes between the squares. So I don't even know how much I used for that, but I love this quilt. It may actually fit on my bed, which is a queen bed, but if not, it will fit on my spare bedroom bed, which is a full-size bed. So friends, thank you for joining me for this flange binding. I guess I could say it's a tutorial, but I didn't turn you down close enough to see what was going on. But I hope you could tell everything that I was doing. It's really easy to do. I was very intimidated by it. I was afraid it wasn't going to turn out right, but it turned out just fine. And I may bring you along while I bind this. I may not, but you will see it completed in one of my updates. Hopefully it's not a year from now. But guys, give me a thumbs up before you roll out of here. If you have not yet subscribed, please do. Feel free to leave a comment and tell me what you think. I do try to respond to each and every comment personally. And as always, until I see you again, I hope you have a very blessed day. Bye guys.